Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking one of the most fascinating and, let's be real, sometimes intimidating concepts in language learning. If you've ever looked at an Arabic text and wondered why the exact same word magically changes its ending, depending on where it sits in a sentence, well, you're in the right place. We are going to completely demystify i'rab, the system of Arabic grammatical inflection. We're going to take what looks like really complex, abstract grammar and turn it into crystal clear, digestible rules. By the end of this, you won't just understand these rules, you are actually going to see the brilliant, almost mathematical logic behind the language.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with what is i'rab, then apparent and estimated signs. Next, secondary inflection signs, followed by the 5 nouns and verbs, and finally, application in exams.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. What is i'rab? To start, we absolutely have to lay down our foundation. At its core, i'rab is simply the change that happens at the very end of an Arabic word. And this change? It's entirely driven by the word's job in the sentence, what we call the governing agents that come right before it. Think about it. Is the word acting as the doer of the action? Is it the direct object receiving the action? Or maybe it's following a preposition? Each of these roles demands a specific uniform, a specific ending. And why does this matter so much? Because in Arabic, shifting just a single ending vowel can entirely flip the meaning of the sentence. It is literally the structural DNA of the language.
And this brilliantly illustrates the default baseline rules, the factory settings of the Arabic language, if you will. When a word is in the nominative state, say it's the subject of your sentence, it takes a dhamma, which is that small u sound. When it's accusative, like a direct object, it takes a fatha, an a sound. When it's in the genitive state, coming after a preposition, it takes a kasra, an I sound. And for verbs sitting in adjussive state, we see the sukun, which just represents the total absence of a vowel.
Moving right along to Section 2, apparent and estimated signs.
Now, what's really interesting here is that Arabic is a deeply rich language, and because of that, it has its layers of complexity. You can't always actually see or hear these vowels. Notice the contrast. Up to now, we've basically been talking about apparent signs, changes you can clearly see written on the page and clearly pronounce out loud, like adding a dhamma to the end of the name Muhammad. But what happens when a word ends in a tricky letter, like a long vowel? That is when we get into estimated signs. The grammatical rule is still applying behind the scenes, absolutely, but the physical vowel sign is hidden, or estimated, simply because pronouncing it would ruin the beautiful flow of the spoken language. So let's play detective for a second. The mechanics of the human mouth explain exactly why these signs go undercover. There are 2 primary culprits here. The first is ta'adhur, which translates to impossibility. If a word ends in an aleph, a long ah sound, it is physically impossible to stack a dhamma or a kasra on top of it. Your mouth literally cannot make that sound combination. The second reason is thiqal, or heaviness. If a word ends in a wa or a ya, technically, yeah, you could force a vowel onto it, but it would feel incredibly heavy and clunky to pronounce. So the Arabic language favors elegance. It simply hides the sign. The grammar is still doing its job. It's just working in the shadows.
All right, Section 3, secondary inflection signs.
So we know the default vowels, and we know when they like to hide. But what about the true rule breakers? The words that completely reject the default vowels and swap them out for entire letters instead? Welcome to the VIP clubs of Arabic grammar. The crucial point here is that certain categories of words have their own highly exclusive inflection signatures. Take duals, words referring to exactly 2 things. They totally drop the standard vowels. Instead, they use an aleph for the nominative case and a ya for both the accusative and genitive. Sound masculine plurals do something really similar. They use a waw for nominative and a ya for the others. But pay super close attention to the sound feminine plural at the bottom of the table. It uses a standard dhamma for the nominative state, but for the accusative state, where you would 100% expect to see a fatha, it takes a kasra instead. No way around it. That is a major trap for students, but it's such a brilliant quirk of the language.
And to add another layer, there are specific words that don't even look like standard plurals but are still granted all-access passes to this VIP club. Words like ulu, meaning possessors of, or sinun, meaning years. Even though they don't follow the exact morphological pattern of a sound masculine plural, they are appended to the rule anyway. They get to use the waw and the ya just like the regular plurals do. It's really all about recognizing the patterns beyond just the surface level.
Section 4, the 5 nouns and verbs.
Let's move even deeper into pattern recognition with two very specific, highly tested groups. First up, we have the 5 nouns. These 5 specific words, father, brother, in-law, mouth, and possessor of, are elevated. When they show up in a construct phrase, they don't just take a little vowel mark. Nope, they extend into full letters to proudly show off their status. They take a long waw in the nominative case, a long aleph in the accusative, and a long ya in the genitive. Memorizing this specific list of 5 is absolutely crucial for mastering Arabic syntax.
Then we have the 5 verbs, which honestly is kind of a slight misnomer because it's really 5 patterns of present tense verbs. Here's the step-by-step logic you need. Step 1. Find a present tense verb attached to a pronoun representing 2 people, a masculine plural, or a second person feminine. Step 2. To show that this verb is in its default nominative state, you just keep the letter nun locked in at the very end. Step 3. If a particle comes along that forces the verb into an accusative or jussive state, the sign of that change is completely dropping the nun. So the simple presence or absence of that single letter tells you the entire grammatical story.
Let's move to Section 5, Application and Exams, and see how this all builds together.
Okay, theory is fantastic, but spotting these rules out in the wild is where true fluency happens. Let's do a rapid-fire practice run. Think back to what we just covered. If you are sitting in a university-level exam and you're asked to spot one of the 5 nouns in a nominative state, meaning it's the subject of the sentence, what specific letter are you scanning the page for?
Well, this actual exam question asks exactly that. Identify the verse containing a nominative noun from the 5 nouns. Let's scan the options together. We see akhi with a ya. Well, we know that's genitive. We see ahuk with a waw. We see thou with an aleph, that's accusative, and abi with a ya, genitive again. Our rules instantly point us to the correct answer, ahuk, because it contains that distinct waw, proving for sure it is the nominative 5 noun.
Let's keep that momentum going. If a question asks you to identify the correct formatting for the 5 verbs we just talked about, what is the key indicator of their baseline, unmodified state? Here is the exam question testing exactly that concept. It gives us 4 lists of verb patterns. Because we know these verbs represent standard present tense actions attached to specific pronouns, we know they absolutely must retain the nun at the end to be grammatically correct in their base state. Option D perfectly lists them. Yaf'ilun, taf'ilun, yaf'alan, taf'alan, taf'alin. Every single one of them securely holds on to its nun.
Now, let's test your memory on the biggest trap we discussed back in Section 3. The VIP rule breakers. When you have a sound feminine plural acting as a direct object, what sign does it take?
And here it is in a real test environment. The exam asks, the sound feminine plural in the state of accusative takes the sign of kasra. The options are kasra, sukun, fata, or dhamma. Your brain desperately wants to pick fata, right? Because that's the default accusative sign for almost everything else. But because you know this specific exception, you know the correct answer selected here is kasra.
Finally, let's wrap this up with a slightly more complex parsing question. We need to find the i'rab of the word al-muttaqin in a verse. It's preceded by the particle inna, which we know forces the following noun into the accusative state. Because al-muttaqin is a sound masculine plural, how exactly does it show its accusative state? By using a ya. And the third option perfectly diagnoses this. It is the noun of inna, it is accusative, and the sign of its accusative state is the ya. The theory works perfectly in practice. So, what does this all mean for us? What we've seen today through these concepts and exams is that i'rab isn't just some arbitrary set of frustrating rules designed to make your life difficult. It's an incredibly precise logical system. By changing a single vowel, or swapping a waw for a ya, or dropping a nun, the entire relationship between words is communicated to the reader. It is the structural DNA of meaning. Mastering these signs, both the apparent ones and the hidden ones, is exactly what transitions you from just reading words on a page to actually comprehending the deep, intended meaning of the text.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. If a single, hidden, estimated vowel dictated by the heaviness of a letter can completely alter the architecture of a sentence, what other hidden nuances, what other beautiful intricacies are waiting to be uncovered in your language journey? Keep analyzing, keep decoding, and keep learning. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive.